Hello everybody, it's great to be here today and to see so many of you. Now I'm really excited to be here and to share lots of information about the upcoming Fairtrade Fortnight that starts on the 22nd of February. So as I said, I'll be speaking to you about Fairtrade Fortnight, walking you through why fair trade is there's so much crossover with the Sustainable Development Goals, and also give you some practical tools that you can take away to your classrooms. We've got some lovely new education packs produced for Fairtrade Fortnight, and we'll walk through some of the activities that you can do with your learners. So, as I mentioned earlier, Fairtrade's Fortnight starts on the 22nd of February and ends on the 8th of March. Now, this 2 weeks is a moment that schools all across the country come together to celebrate the people that grow and produce our food and drinks that we eat every day. So it's great to have you along in the session today, just in time to be equipped to celebrate that with your learners. So first of all, thinking about the Sustainable Development Goals, there are a huge amount of crossover between the Sustainable Development Goals and fair trade. And of the 169 targets that sit under the Sustainable Development Goals, there's barely any that you can't relate to some way to food and to farming. So if we look at SDG 12, this is all about responsible consumption and production, that just now we are living beyond our means, and if the estimated population, world population, reaches the 9.7 billion by 2050, that's estimated, we would need 3 planets to sustain us. Now, what fair trade does is it brings together millions of consumers committed to buying sustainably and who care about where their food comes from. Now, smallholder farmers are at the heart of global agricultural systems, but current trade policies globally marginalise farmers and workers. There are many, as we saw from Sally's quiz earlier, there's a huge amount of people still living in poverty. It's often farmers and workers who are living in poverty, and we'll come on in a minute to talk about the climate crisis, who contribute the least to some of the other global issues that we have in the world, but are hit the hardest by them. And consumers are becoming more and more concerned about where their food comes from. So this is where fair trade has a great role to play, in that fair trade connects farmers and workers to the people that buy products. And that's why it's so fantastic to be introducing fair trade to young learners, because it's when they're starting to develop their values and become conscious, critical consumers of the future. Now, in addition to Sustainable Development Goal 12, and I know that's the focus of our session today, we're going to be thinking a bit about Sustainable Development Goal 13. And I touched a bit on climate there, which is climate action, because fair trade has a role to play in this as well. Now, this feeds into the theme of Fairtrade Fortnight. Now, every year during Fairtrade Fortnight in schools, as you may be aware, there's a theme that's the focus, because obviously fair trade is a very, very broad issue. Now, this year we're focusing on climate, fair trade and you, because what we're hearing more and more from many different supply chains is that in addition to low income causing poverty and causing farmers to have to make very difficult decisions in their lives, the climate crisis is one of the most imminent, pressing problems at the moment. And of course, the issue of the climate crisis is very high on the national agenda and in media, but often the issue of how farmers and workers overseas are hit by this issue is overlooked. So this 2 weeks, Fairtrade Fortnight, is a moment to highlight this issue and to talk about it with our young people and make sure people are aware of the issues currently. Now, just to give you a little bit of context, we're going to look at these 3 products. So on the globe here, we've obviously got our coffee and bananas from South America and our cocoa grown in West Africa. Now, these in schools for Fairtrade Fortnight will be the 3 products that we're going to be focusing on. So we've got our coffee, bananas and cocoa, because these 3 products have 4 things in common, probably have lots more in common, but 4 things in common that we're going to highlight today. So they all grow in tropical climates. they all enjoy, and by the way, these slides are all available on the Fairtrade School website so that you can go through them with your children in your classes or schools. So they're all grown in tropical climates, all grown near the equator, damaged by extreme weather, which is becoming more and more common in recent years because they're all impacted by the climate crisis. And just very briefly, I wanted to kind of have a look at some of the issues that farmers and workers who work in behind these three commodities, so in banana, cocoa and coffee farming, are facing. The first is obviously very extreme weather. Well, it's all extreme weather, but high temperatures, drought. On the other extreme, there's flooding because of heavy rainfall. And this last image down on the right bottom hand side is a photograph of a cocoa farmer in a cooperative called Goldie Gorbu in Sierra Leone, and he's holding 2 cocoa pods that are riddled with black pod disease. Now, this is a type of plant disease that gets right into the cocoa pods. It turns them black. The beans inside go moldy and it's unusable. You cannot sell that to make to go into the chocolate supply chain. And it's very, very contagious. And it often comes if there's been lots and lots of rainfall. And in recent years, especially over the past year, what's normally quite predictable weather has become completely unpredictable. And so it's really difficult to manage these diseases. So that, combined with very low incomes, is catastrophic for the livelihoods of cocoa farmers, as well as banana and coffee. And there are similar diseases with coffee. It's something called leaf rust is becoming more and more common across other commodities that are growing in these tropical climates. So I just wanted to share a story of Selena. I've highlighted on the map there, and you can show your learners this in your classes, a story about the Climate Academy, just to illustrate how fair trade can support with these issues, both of low income, but also protecting farmers and their families from the impacts of the climate crisis. Now, Fairtrade worked with farmers in Kenya and Ethiopia to learn all about the ways that they could protect their farms from the extreme weather. So the farmers together in the Climate Academy have created a guide that contains everything that they've learnt from protecting their farms from the climate crisis to help other farmers cope. And this has gone countrywide. It's now being shared across the region in East Africa in coffee farming. So this guide details everything from knowing how to grow plants to survive droughts to reforesting the land. And one of the really unique things is that the Climate Academy have helped farmers to use biogas. Rather than cutting down trees for for fuel, they're now using cow manure, which is obviously a much more environmentally friendly way of producing and generating energy. So when you're choosing fair trade, and this is the important thing that what Josh was saying about having that sense of empowerment and agency in learners, that when young people are choosing fair trade, they're ensuring that farmers are receiving more money and more skills to protect farmers and their families, but also the planet that we share. So every day through learners' choices, they have the power to make a difference. Now, to help young people understand that, I've just given you a whistle stop. We've got education packs that are packed full of resources. So we've got one for primary, one for secondary, and next week we've also got a pack of early years resources coming out that's for use in nurseries. And in these packs, you'll find assembly plans. Now we've got assemblies that are scripted for young people to do. You can do them over Zoom or in the classroom, depending on the situation. We've also got films from Fairtrade Foundation staff doing virtual visits for your classes. We've got small ones and longer ones. There's lots of lesson plans in there. I think the primary education pack has 6 lesson plans that also can be adapted virtually. On the left there, you've got your home learning grid. So these are interdisciplinary activities that are quite creative and open-ended, that encourage learners at home to start projects that will help them learn more and consolidate learning about fair trade and the climate. We've got some farmer stories as well, and also a new film that's been produced. And I'm hoping that today I'll be able to show you that film. Now, as Sally mentioned before, normally during Fairtrade Fortnight, a great part of it is getting everybody together in a real room or going out to visit schools and hosting lots of events, bringing producers over to hold lots of talks. Unfortunately, we can't do that this year, so we're hosting an online festival, the Choose the World You Want Festival. This will be live for 2 weeks through the Fairtrade Foundation website, and here you'll find lots of different events, whether it be talks, craft workshops, panel discussions, that will all help shine a light on the issue of the climate and fair trade, but also your agency and young people's agency to create change. Today, I wanted to specifically share with you an area at the festival called the Fairtrade Youth Exhibition. That's a creative space for young people to share their vision of the world that they want for farmers and workers worldwide and the planet that we share. And this is a really nice activity to do as a follow-up activity after you've explored any of the resources in the pack, or even one that they can do at home. So there's details that we'll make sure that are circulated around afterwards, but that's a fantastic activity for young people to get involved in. And they submit their visions to the Fairtrade Foundation, and we will celebrate hopefully as many visions as possible on a rotational basis throughout the Fairtrade Fortnight at the exhibition. So that's something I'd encourage everyone to get involved with. And that's a whistle stop of Fairtrade Fortnight and the resources. I wanted to pause at this point, but we'll maybe come back to it at the end just to see if there was any questions on those specifically, and also just to flag that it's possible to become, through your fair trade activities that you do in school over Fairtrade Fortnight, to become a fair trade school. So if you're already doing activities, whether it be home learning or in the classroom, do have a look at the website, because it's great to get accreditation for all the work that you're doing with young people. I think what I'll do is I'll just carry on. We can maybe do questions at the end, because I thought it would be quite nice to go through one of the activities that you can do with young people during Fairtrade Fortnight. Now, the lesson that we're going to look at today is called Cocoa Climate, and it includes a film. It comes with teacher notes and lots of follow-up activities and guidance on how to use this resource. So your 2 learning outcomes are here. So young people will be able to compare the climate in the UK with a cocoa growing region in West Africa. And also they can consider how the climate crisis is impacting these 2 regions. And of course, this hits a lot of outcomes under the Learning for Sustainability umbrella, and specifically these 2 experiences and outcomes here in the Scottish curriculum. It's worth noting as well, because there'll be lots of people out with Scotland, I'm sure, watching the recording, that this also aligns with the curriculums nationally in England and Wales as well. So you can start the lesson, and this is a good example of how to use this with learners, and we can maybe use the chat function for this. So if you can have your chat function at the ready, that you display this picture to young people and pose a few questions, and it would be great if you could type in the chat what do you think the answers are. So what type of farm do you think this is, first of all? I think, Sally, you might have to shout if there's anything that you need to know from the chat box.
Quite a lot of people are saying cocoa, and some people are saying coffee, and some are saying cocoa and banana.
Right, okay, so we are a cocoa, this is a cocoa farm, and it's a great picture to get children thinking about the climate. Would you see this in the UK? Having a look at the trees, what is growing on this farmer's farm? So you're right with cocoa, it is a cocoa farm. Where in the world do you think this is? What do you think the temperature is like in this photograph? Is it hot? Is it cold? And could this photograph be in the UK? And why do you think this is? And it's really important to start to get learners to think about these issues, because as Josh said earlier about, young people being familiar with, for example, dairy farming, is that it's important to realise how interconnected our world is and how delicate our global system is, and how we are reliant on our planet having different climates for our food system. So this is a good photograph to elicit those types of conversations. Now I'm going to have a go at playing Cocoa Climate, the film itself. The activities that you can do before watching this film is we have this worksheet here to encourage learners to start consolidating the thoughts they're having around the climate. So just a really simple, compare the tropical rainforest climate of Côte d'Ivoire with the temperate climate of the UK. And there's space here for annotating the tropical rainforest climate and the temperate climate, and what do these two areas have in common? Now, the film is short, it's just 3 minutes, so if you were doing this in a classroom, you would probably play it once and then maybe play it again and they could use the notes.
Chocolate is made from cocoa. On average, 4 million tons of cocoa beans are produced in the world each year. But you might have noticed that there are no cocoa farms in the UK. Why is that? It's to do with something called the climate. The climate of a place is worked out by looking at the weather over many years. There are different climate regions in different parts of the world. In the UK, we have a temperate climate. This means that we have cold, wet winters and warm, wet summers. You can grow many types of fruit in temperate climates. Apples, pears, peaches, plums and strawberries are all grown in the UK, but not cocoa. Cocoa grows best in tropical rainforest climates. And that's why most of the world's cocoa is grown in countries near the equator. Tropical rainforest climates are hot, wet and very humid. It rains heavily all year round. Cocoa trees like the hot, humid weather, but they need to be sheltered from the wind and sun. That's why the rainforest is a perfect place for them to grow. But the Earth's climate is changing and our planet is getting hotter. This means that the usual weather found in different climate areas is changing too. This can bring extreme and damaging events such as floods, droughts and violent storms. This climate is in crisis. In the UK, our summers are becoming hotter and very cold winters are becoming rarer. This may sound like a good thing, but it has drastic effects on farming, nature and people. It makes the weather unpredictable. The changing climate will affect what types of food can be grown in the UK in the future. The climate crisis is causing even more problems in tropical rainforest climates. In West Africa, cocoa farmers are already seeing more floods, droughts and plant diseases on their farms. This damages farms. Farmers earn little money for the cocoa they sell anyway. If they lose some or all of their crops, they struggle to recover and can end up trapped in poverty. This means that they don't have enough money to meet their basic needs like food, water, shelter, education or healthcare. But you have the power to make a difference to the lives of people affected by the climate crisis. By choosing fair trade, you're choosing a world where cocoa farmers are paid higher prices for their cocoa, so they can protect themselves, their families and their farms from the climate crisis. Choose the world you want, for you, for farmers and for the planet that we all share.
Okay, so I hope that illustrates how fair trade can be used in the classroom as a tool to make young people feel empowered, that they can tackle some of these issues through the simple choices that they make every day. Now, I think I'm just going to return back to my slide and just show you a couple more of the activities that you can do. You can use the Jamboard, as you saw there, to annotate. Now, a follow-up activity, and just in the interest of time, I'm just going to talk through this at the moment. A follow-up activity would then be to use a different coloured pen, or you could use the Jamboard if you're home learning, to use a different colour sticky note to record the effects of the climate crisis on your Venn diagram. How is each environment affected, and how are people affected? For younger children, you might want them to prepare a suitcase for travelling to a temperate climate or a tropical rainforest climate. And as a follow-up, you could also create your vision of the world that you want for farmers and workers worldwide and the planet that we share. So there's lots in there. That's just one of the examples of what's in the pack that I'd be delighted to share with you. And I just hope that you have a fantastic Fairtrade Fortnight and that you find the resources useful in your classrooms. If there's anything else that you would like to ask specifically on Fairtrade schools, becoming a Fairtrade school, on the resources, please feel free to email me. I'll pop the email address in the chat and we'll also circulate these resources afterwards as well. But thank you very much.
Okay, thank you ever so much, Claire. Now, hopefully you can all see the problem cocoa tree now. Great. Okay, so this is kind of an adapted version of a methodology that we at the One World Centre and all the DCs we use and recommend quite a lot. It's an adapted issue tree. And this has been adapted by the Fairtrade Foundation, and you can download this image from the website as well. And if you haven't used it before, it's just very simple. You just you put your cause, you put your problem in the middle on the trunk, and then your cause is at the bottom, your effects are on the branches, and your solutions are on the fruit of the tree. So this is a really good way of getting young people to really pick apart an issue and to think through the different parts of it. And so I'm just going to jump back. So I'm using a Jamboard here. So I've just kind of did one a little bit earlier on. So put plastic pollution as the issue. And then I've just used, just in case you haven't used a Jamboard before, I know lots of you have because you're all jumping in there, but over here on the side, you just select a sticky note, change the color, type in whatever you want to type in, and then place it wherever you like on the board. So this is something you can do with young people as part of home learning. It's really, really simple. You can add images and all sorts of different things at the side, but all very, very easy and fairly intuitive. So I'm going to hand over to Colleen now.
Okay, so hello everyone, good afternoon. So my name is Colleen, I work with the Scottish Fair Trade Forum, and I'm just going to take 5 minutes today to give you a whistle-stop tour also of what we do, who we are, what we do, and what we can offer you in terms of teachers and schools, but also those who are interested in getting involved in fair trade communities. So just a bit more about, for those, some of you will be very aware of the Scottish Fair Trade Forum and what we do, some of you won't, so I'm just going to give you a wee introduction. We're Scotland's Fair Trade Network. We basically bring together or support people who are interested in buying, selling, campaigning for fair trade, or simply learning about fair trade. But we're an independent membership organisation, so our membership includes the likes of fair trade groups, local authorities, other educational institutions, and includes lots of schools too. We were set up back in 2007 to achieve Fair Trade Nation status for Scotland, and we achieved that in 2013, and then that was reassessed in 2017. And lots of people ask me, oh, what is Fair Trade Nation status? How can, you know, maybe a school can have fair trade status, or a community can even have fair trade status, and there's a wee bit of understanding about that, but actually how can a nation or a country have fair trade status? And what this is really about was bringing people coming together, so across Scotland, and showing that there was a proportionate level of awareness, purchasing and support for fair trade in Scotland. And schools were a huge part of that as well. So schools are included in the criteria for that as well. The other thing, so yes, was fair trade nation status. We obviously work very closely with Claire and our team at the Fairtrade Foundation. So we support the Fair Trade mark and helping communities and schools to achieve fair trade status. But we're a wee bit broader in the sense of that we also support other certification or verification schemes or systems that adhere to the 10 principles of fair trade. It's quite like the SDGs actually, and because it sits very closely to the SDGs in terms of what the principles are trying to achieve and what the SDGs are trying to achieve as well. So that's kind of who we are. So just in terms of what's going on in Scotland, so we're maybe in lockdown at the moment, but there's lots of fair trade activity still taking place. Scotland is a really active, thriving fair trade network. So we have around 100 fair trade community groups across Scotland who are very active, engaged and achieving fair trade status for their community. And again, I mean, a lot of people will ask me what that means. You may have seen some of the road signs at the entry to your own town, village, borough, or even island, saying we're a fair trade city, etc. And it's about a group of people coming together, so a cross section of the community coming together to show that they stand with farmers and producers in the developing world. And on a practical level, it means that they've formed a group, they work with the local authority closely to try and introduce more fair trade products, increase the availability of fair trade products, but also just quite simply telling people what fair trade is and trying to increase understanding of what fair trade is. Now this, I suppose, links into what Sally, Josh and Claire have all said about people and young people have a new agency to do things in the community, and there's lots of nice examples of that. So you wouldn't have to look far in your community for an example of that. And you know, a fair trade group is almost the great example that you could use there. And also the reason I'm mentioning fair trade groups is the fact that they would love for you to work with them or to get involved in their activities and link up to schools. So this is an example from East Dunbartonshire, who's got a very active fair trade group that with great support from the local authority. So they have, for example, the East Dunbartonshire Fair Trade Group have organised the likes of preschool fair trade nursery activities, and last year for Fairtrade Fortnight, so on the right there, they also organised a fair trade festival community event, and they invited the Kirkconntilloch, the local high school, the students there to submit art along the She Deserves theme. So it's a nice example of the school and the community group working together. Okay, so this is now an example from Paisley, where we have Mary Russell High School, who works very closely with the local fair trade shop Rainbow Turtle there. And just one of the activities that they did was, for example, they helped decorate the window for the festive season along a kind of eco, environmental and fair trade theme. This is an example from Hutchison's Grammar Junior School in Glasgow, and the reason I wanted to mention this was that they didn't work so much with their local fair trade group, the Glasgow Fair Trade Cooperative, but they did reach out to us for some support, so we were able to direct them to our community grant scheme, and they got one of our community grants to help them put together this lovely animation called A Fair Tale. Now, the interesting thing about this was the teacher actually got the fair trade group to submit the application for the grant, and thereby, I believe, developing lots of good literacy, numeracy skills, and there was also some negotiation skills in there and persuasive writing skills, because we were persuaded and we gave them the grant. So in a nutshell, we can help you find and make contact with your local fair trade group. We can also help you find fair trade products in Scotland. So on our website, we have a suppliers map, and we have a new website called Fair Trade Finders at fairtrade.scot, and you can go onto that page and input places that you have found fair trade, so your pupils could be involved in that. We can help you campaign for fair trade, so there's some campaigns going on at the moment with the post-Brexit trade deals and ensuring that farmers are not hit by tariffs. We can help fund your fair trade activities. and we can connect you to other supporters, and we can do that through Fairtrade meetups and events and things that we're holding. So all our events are open to anyone who wants to come along. Your pupils, you know, you as teachers could come along, other staff in your school could come along, but pupils would love for them to come along as well and contribute to meetings and hear what's going on in Fairtrade in Scotland. So if there's one thing that you do this afternoon, it would just be to check out our website, scottishfairtradeforum.org.uk, and follow us on social media at Fairtrade Nation, and then from there you'll get all the information about what's going on. And finally, I wanted to give a wee plug for this Fairtrade Fortnight event, which will be part of the Fairtrade Festival. So the Fairtrade Festival will be kind of the one-stop shop where you'll be able to get access to all the different events going on. And this is one of the ones that we are hosting, so wake up and taste the coffee. So that's our contact details, so scottishfairtradeforum.org.uk at Fairtrade Nation, and that's my email address. And I'm happy for anyone to kind of get in touch if you're looking for connections, information, or resources or signposting.